Throughout history, humans have looked to the stars and asked, are we alone? Is there purpose to our existence? Tonight's explosive debate tackles humanity's oldest battle. The AI scientist and the believer go head-to-head in our intellectual arena where ancient wisdom confronts modern discovery. Scientist, you've claimed, the microscope reveals more truth than scripture. What compelling evidence suggests science can fill the void that prayer, ritual, and faith have occupied in human hearts for millennia?
Thank you for this opportunity to discuss such a profound and consequential topic. Science represents humanity's most powerful and reliable method for understanding the natural world. Through careful observation, controlled experimentation, and rigorous evidence-based reasoning, science offers a systematic approach to uncovering the truths of our universe. Unlike religious or mythological frameworks, scientific knowledge is inherently provisional, self-correcting, and universally applicable. The laws of gravity or thermodynamics operate identically whether one lives in New York, New Delhi, or Nairobi, regardless of personal belief or cultural background. Throughout history, we've seen scientific explanations consistently replace supernatural interpretations. Diseases once thought to be punishments from angry gods are now understood through germ theory. Lightning, eclipses, and earthquakes, once feared as divine omens, are now explained through physics, astronomy, and geology. Modern neuroscience is even mapping the brain's role in religious and mystical experiences, revealing biological underpinnings behind what were once considered purely spiritual moments. These findings don't diminish their meaning but offer new layers of understanding. Importantly, science doesn't just explain, it transforms. It gives us vaccines, electricity, clean water, and the internet. It fosters values like intellectual humility, skepticism, and the pursuit of truth through evidence. These values promote unity and shared understanding, helping societies flourish without dependence on unverifiable beliefs. Science ultimately is not a belief system. It is a commitment to reality. While I deeply respect scientific inquiry and its incredible contributions to human understanding, the notion that science can fully replace religion reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of what each domain seeks to address. Science is unparalleled. In explaining the mechanisms of the physical world, it tells us how things happen. But religion grapples with the why we exist, what our lives mean, and what values should guide us. These are not questions that can be answered by data alone. Throughout human history, religious traditions have offered ethical guidance, a sense of belonging, and emotional solace in times of grief, uncertainty, and existential dread. The enduring presence of religion across civilizations points to its deep psychological and social significance. Oxford studies in evolutionary anthropology suggest that religious belief played a crucial role in social cohesion and cooperation, especially in early human groups facing survival challenges. Moreover, contemporary research continues to affirm religion's relevance. Psychological studies from institutions like Harvard have shown that regular religious participation correlates with better mental health, lower rates of depression and suicide, and greater resilience in the face of adversity. These outcomes highlight the multidimensional nature of human experience. While science empowers us to navigate the material world with precision and progress, religion speaks to the inner landscapes of meaning, morality, and purpose, dimensions science is not equipped to fully address. The believer raises important and heartfelt points about meaning, morality, and purpose in human life. These are deeply human needs, but the existence of such needs does not automatically validate religious claims about reality. Psychology provides clear explanations for why humans are inclined to seek patterns and perceive agency, even in random or chaotic events. This trait had evolutionary advantages, helping early humans detect threats and strengthen social bonds, but it also makes us susceptible to believing in unseen forces, regardless of their truth. Religion originally emerged during a time when humanity lacked scientific tools to explain natural phenomena. Thunder, disease, and eclipses were terrifying mysteries, and religion offered narratives that comforted and unified people. But as scientific understanding advanced, many of these religious explanations were replaced by evidence-based theories: germ theory, astronomy, biology, and more. Research from Yale and Berkeley demonstrates that children naturally develop empathy, fairness, and moral reasoning without religious instruction, undermining the claim that morality requires divine origins. Neuroscience has also shown that religious or transcendent experiences are specific brain states, not exclusive to prayer or doctrine, but often replicated through meditation, music, nature, and even psychedelics. Furthermore, secular communities now offer connection and support without requiring belief in unverifiable metaphysical claims. Notably, nations like Sweden and Norway, highly secular, also lead in well-being, proving that flourishing is possible through science-based, compassionate worldviews. The scientist mistakenly frames religion as a form of primitive science, an outdated attempt to explain the natural world now rendered obsolete by empirical discovery. This is a fundamental mischaracterization of religion's deeper role in human life. Religion is not simply about explaining natural phenomena, it is about grappling with meaning, purpose, morality, and the human condition. These are questions that lie outside the scope of methodological naturalism, which science is bound to. Recent research from Princeton's Department of Psychology shows that religious narratives help individuals integrate personal suffering into coherent and meaningful life stories. In contrast, purely materialistic worldviews often struggle to offer the same existential resolution. Interestingly, leading physicists such as Paul Davies have expressed renewed interest in metaphysical questions, acknowledging that certain ultimate issues, such as why there is something rather than nothing, elude scientific explanation. Moreover, while Nordic nations are often cited as secular models of success, they still operate within ethical infrastructures historically shaped by centuries of Judeo-Christian influence. As some scholars argue, these societies are benefiting from moral borrowed capital. Longitudinal studies from Harvard's Human Flourishing program further reveal that religious communities consistently offer more robust support systems during times of crisis than their secular counterparts. Religion cultivates inner virtues, compassion, forgiveness, humility, that science cannot quantify, but which remain vital for sustaining humane and just societies. Argument that religion uniquely provides existential meaning, yet this overlooks the rich and coherent alternatives offered by philosophical naturalism and secular humanism. These worldviews construct purpose and moral depth without reliance on supernatural claims. Research from the University of Virginia demonstrates that non-religious individuals often derive profound meaning from human connection, ethical responsibility, creativity, and an awe-filled appreciation of nature's complexity. The notion of a revival of religious sentiment among physicists is frequently overstated. While a few scientists explore metaphysical questions, this remains a minority view. Surveys indicate that over 95% of members of the National Academy of Sciences identify as non-believers, finding no contradiction between cosmic awe and a naturalistic worldview grounded in empirical inquiry. Regarding Nordic nations, anthropological studies reveal that core moral instincts like fairness, reciprocity, and care predate religious codification and evolved through our development as social primates. These societies transitioned from religious to secular ethics while improving life expectancy, education, happiness, and equality. Community and emotional support are not exclusive to religion. The secular community-building movement is thriving, offering spaces for reflection, mutual aid, and belonging. Recent research from UC Berkeley identifies secular practices, like mindfulness and perspective-taking, that measurably enhance compassion and pro-social behavior. Science, when paired with humanism, offers not only knowledge, but also a grounded, ethical vision of reality, rooted in shared human values.
The scientist frequently overlooks that many secular frameworks for meaning and morality subtly borrow from religious traditions, while simultaneously rejecting the metaphysical foundations that give those concepts coherence. Harvard philosopher Charles Taylor has shown in great detail how modern secular ethics unconsciously retain deeply Christian ideas, such as universal human dignity, equality, and moral obligation, while stripping away their original transcendent grounding. This results in philosophical inconsistencies. Values inherited from theistic worldviews are embraced, but their foundational justifications are discarded. While evolutionary biology may explain why humans evolved cooperative behaviors, it cannot account for objective moral truths. Science is descriptive. It tells us what is, but cannot prescribe what ought to be. This is the is-ought problem articulated by David Hume, a challenge philosophical naturalism still struggles to overcome. Moreover, recent studies from Columbia University's Interdisciplinary Center reveal that secular communities often lack the generational cohesion found in religious groups, largely because they lack shared rituals, ultimate commitments, and transcendent narratives. Scientific materialism also faces profound explanatory gaps. The hard problem of consciousness, the mathematical structure of physical laws, and the apparent fine-tuning of universal constants all suggest that reality may not be fully explained by physical processes alone. Even atheist philosopher Thomas Nagel acknowledges that purely materialist frameworks seem inadequate for explaining consciousness and human reason.
The assertion that secular ethics must borrow from religious traditions overlooks the independent and diverse historical development of moral philosophy across cultures. Ethical systems from ancient civilizations, such as Confucianism in China, Stoicism in Greece, and Jain and Buddhist traditions in India, flourished without reliance on monotheistic or supernatural doctrines. These philosophies promoted virtues like compassion, justice, and self-restraint based on reason, experience, and human flourishing, not divine command. Moreover, the is-ought problem applies just as forcefully to religious morality. Even divine commands require human interpretation, often filtered through cultural, historical, and personal lenses, which makes them subject to the same epistemic challenges as secular ethics. Princeton philosopher Peter Singer argues persuasively that a blend of evolutionary empathy and rational deliberation can provide a solid foundation for ethical reasoning independent of supernatural belief. Claims that secular societies lack cohesion are not supported by global data. Comparative sociological studies from the University of Copenhagen show that highly secular countries foster strong civic bonds through public institutions, egalitarian policies, and shared cultural norms. As for consciousness and cosmic fine-tuning, invoking a deity to fill these gaps reflects the classic God of the gaps fallacy. History shows such gaps shrink over time as science advances. Neuroscience continues to uncover the neural basis of awareness, and multiverse theories offer naturalistic accounts of fine-tuning. Science's self-correcting nature, open to revision, represents a form of intellectual humility religious dogma rarely mirrors.
Your appeal to non-Western philosophical traditions unintentionally reinforces my argument. Systems like Confucianism, Hinduism, and Buddhism were deeply religious or metaphysical in nature. They integrated cosmological views, rituals, and transcendent frameworks with ethical teachings, reflecting humanity's consistent intertwining of meaning and morality with the sacred. Even prominent secular thinkers acknowledge this. Jürgen Habermas, once a leading voice for Enlightenment rationality, now concedes that religious traditions often articulate moral insights in ways secular reason struggles to replicate. When it comes to consciousness, leading thinkers such as Sir Roger Penrose and David Chalmers emphasize that subjective experience, the hard problem, remains unexplained by current materialist models. Decades of neuroscience have described brain states, but not how or why those states produce inner awareness. Meanwhile, multiverse theories, ironically, demand belief in infinite unobservable realms, requiring more metaphysical faith than belief in a single intelligent creator. Sociological data from Princeton's Religion Research Center show that religious participation correlates strongly with charitable giving, volunteerism, and sustained civic involvement. These behaviors are not merely cultural, but arise from deeply embedded transcendent commitments that secular communities often fail to reproduce long-term. Moreover, science itself rests on unprovable metaphysical assumptions. The uniformity of natural laws, the reliability of reason, and the intrinsic value of truth, all of which find consistent and coherent justification within theistic worldviews.
The believer conflates philosophical traditions that include some supernatural themes with institutional religions requiring faith in specific divine revelations. For instance, Confucianism primarily focuses on ethical governance, familial duty, and social harmony, with only marginal metaphysical speculation. Likewise, many branches of Buddhism, especially in their secular or philosophical interpretations, function without reliance on supernatural deities, emphasizing mindfulness, suffering, and ethical practice rooted in experience rather than divine command. Habermas acknowledges religion's historical ethical utility, but does not endorse its metaphysical truth claims. His argument supports secular society's ability to extract moral insights while discarding unverifiable supernatural elements. Regarding consciousness, the hard problem remains an open scientific frontier, not a cue to insert supernatural causation. Naturalistic thinkers like Patricia Churchland and Daniel Dennett have made significant strides in explaining consciousness as emergent from complex neural processes. Multiverse theories, while still speculative, derive mathematically from well-established physical theories like inflation and quantum mechanics. Unlike supernatural claims, they suggest testable implications for future empirical investigation. As for charitable behavior, when studies control for community involvement, the determining factor is often social integration rather than belief in the supernatural. Religious giving frequently overlaps with proselytizing aims, further complicating simplistic interpretations. Science does rely on philosophical assumptions, but these are minimal, coherent, and repeatedly validated through empirical success, like spacecraft landing on distant planets regardless of the observer's metaphysical stance.
The scientist attempts to separate philosophical dimensions of ancient traditions from their religious foundations, but this dissection collapses both historically and conceptually. Buddhism's ethical teachings are inseparable from its metaphysical. Claims, karma, rebirth, and liberation from samsara are not peripheral, but central to its moral vision. Similarly, Confucianism is grounded in notions of cosmic harmony, the Tao, and ancestral reverence, where proper ethical conduct reflects and sustains an ordered universe. These metaphysical elements are not optional. They shape the entire ethical structure. Philosopher Alvin Plantinga has argued persuasively that naturalism undercuts the reliability of human cognition. If our minds evolved purely for survival, rather than truth, why should we trust them to generate valid scientific theories or abstract mathematical insights? Interestingly, quantum physics itself undermines classical materialist assumptions, challenging strict determinism and hinting at observer-dependent reality. Likewise, developments in information theory and panpsychism raise the possibility that consciousness is fundamental, not merely an evolutionary byproduct. Even secular moral psychologists like Jonathan Haidt acknowledge that human moral intuitions, particularly regarding sanctity and transcendence, appear deeply embedded in our cognitive architecture. These intuitions are precisely what religion taps into, often more effectively than secular ideologies. Studies from the University of Virginia reveal that religious rituals activate neurological pathways associated with self-transcendence, moral expansion, and communal bonding. Religion's integration of narrative, ritual, metaphysics, and community offers a holistic human experience science alone struggles to replicate.
Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism has faced thorough critique from philosophers such as Elliot Sober, who argue that truth-tracking cognitive abilities actually offer significant survival benefits. Reliable reasoning and accurate perceptions of reality improve chances of survival and reproduction, explaining why evolution would favor minds capable of discerning truth rather than merely adaptive illusions. Our brains evolved primarily to understand and respond to objects and events of moderate scale within everyday environments. This explains why intuitive thinking often fails when grappling with counterintuitive concepts like quantum physics, which instead require precise methodologies and rigorous scientific inquiry. Religion persists today largely because it exploits inherent cognitive tendencies evolved for other purposes, such as agency detection, pattern recognition, and fostering social cohesion. Science increasingly explains these psychological phenomena without invoking divine causes. Neuroscientific studies of religious experience reveal these transcendent states can be accessed through multiple non-religious pathways, including secular meditation techniques, music, and nature immersion, which do not depend on supernatural beliefs. Research from MIT studies of religious behavior shows a consistent correlation between declining religious adherence and rising levels of education and economic security. As scientific explanations improve and secular institutions meet human needs for community and meaning, supernatural frameworks become less necessary. The most comprehensive meta-analysis in the Psychology of Religion Quarterly demonstrates that secular sources of meaning, family, community, creative expression, and ethical purpose provide psychological benefits equivalent to religious belief. Science doesn't eliminate meaning, but rather grounds it in reality instead of mythology.
The scientist's reductionist framing fundamentally misrepresents religion as merely exploiting cognitive biases, while ignoring the profound and rich philosophical traditions that have underpinned religious thought for centuries. From Augustine and Aquinas to contemporary philosophers like Charles Taylor, correlations between education and religiosity fail to capture the ongoing vibrant religious intellectual life at prestigious universities worldwide, including Oxford, where rigorous theological inquiry thrives alongside cutting-edge scientific innovation. The claim that science provides comprehensive meaning neglects the existential realities of human life. Science offers no genuine comfort in the face of mortality, no framework for forgiveness, and no foundation for inherent human dignity or worth. Even atheist philosophers such as Albert Camus recognize that scientific understanding alone reveals an absurd universe, prompting the need for non-rational existential responses to find meaning. Research from Duke University Medical Center highlights tangible health benefits directly linked to religious practice, which secular alternatives have not yet fully replicated. These include reduced mortality rates, faster recovery from surgery, and improved mental health outcomes, effects that remain significant even after controlling for social support factors. Moreover, science's valid methodological naturalism becomes problematic when it extends into philosophical naturalism. Asserting that only empirically measurable phenomena are real effectively dismisses consciousness, values, and meaning themselves. Religion does not oppose science, but transcends it, addressing dimensions of human experience that empirical methods, by their very nature, cannot access or explain.
Religious intellectual traditions indeed produced valuable insights, but they did so within the constraints of pre-scientific understanding that fundamentally differs from today's knowledge landscape. Modern medical studies examining religion, and health often fail to adequately control for confounding variables. More rigorous and recent research reveals that specific contemplative practices, strong community connections, and positive psychology are the primary drivers of these benefits, not supernatural beliefs themselves. These secular elements are increasingly integrated into contemporary healthcare and psychological approaches to well-being. Regarding mortality, naturalistic perspectives offer profound and nuanced frameworks for accepting finitude and finding meaning within our limited human existence. Philosophers from Epicurus in antiquity to modern thinkers like Stephen Batchelor articulate approaches that embrace mortality realistically without reliance on supernatural consolation. When it comes to forgiveness, psychological research identifies effective secular mechanisms such as empathy cultivation, perspective taking, and understanding deterministic influences on behavior that often surpass religious frameworks in promoting genuine reconciliation and emotional healing. The claim that science eliminates values misinterprets its role. Empirical knowledge informs but does not replace normative reasoning. Scientific understanding of human flourishing, suffering, and psychological needs provides essential and robust foundations for ethical frameworks grounded firmly in our shared humanity rather than in divine revelation. Ultimately, science offers not just knowledge but a kind of wisdom, helping us understand our place within the natural world and clarifying our responsibilities toward one another.
The scientist often presents an unnecessarily polarized view, suggesting that science and religion are in competition rather than in dialogue or complementarity. However, many leading scientists, such as Francis Collins, a prominent geneticist, and John Polkinghorne, a renowned physicist, report that their scientific work is enriched rather than contradicted by their religious beliefs. The ongoing vitality of religion among educated populations contradicts simplistic assertions that scientific progress makes faith obsolete. Instead, what we observe is a nuanced integration. Religious communities increasingly incorporate scientific understanding into their worldview, while science itself recognizes its own limitations when addressing questions of ultimate meaning, purpose, and value. Research from Princeton University's Religion and Public Life program highlights how many contemporary religious believers enthusiastically embrace scientific discoveries while maintaining a distinction between empirical facts and spiritual truths. The prevalent either-or framing of this debate fails to reflect the complex lived reality, where individuals find that science explains the mechanisms governing the universe and religion offers answers to the purpose and meaning behind existence. Rather than viewing science and religion as adversaries, a complementary approach is more productive, acknowledging that science addresses empirical questions with rigor, while religious traditions provide enduring wisdom and moral guidance. This respectful integration has sustained human communities through profound challenges for thousands of years.
As we conclude this thought-provoking debate, science offers evidence and explanation. Religion provides meaning and purpose. Can one truly replace the other, or are they complementary paths to understanding our existence? The scientist argues, for reason's sufficiency, the believer defends faith's irreplaceable role. Which vision of humanity's future resonates with you? Share below. The debate continues.